how the British and the Japanese, this kind of formality
Exactly, yes.
is very ingrained in the
society,
Yes.
in their societies, right?
Yes.
That proper behavior is like the number one thing
Yes.
that you must do.
Hold on.
Yeah. Sorry, George.
Me too, George.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're still
I get it.
discussing our last movie,
Okay.
which was great. So, hello.
Spoilers.
Make sure
Right.
you get it. It's like, hello. We're back. And so now I think it's Lon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, my film I picked this week was Living. It's directed by Oliver Hermanus and screenplay by Kazuo Ishiguro, which he based on the 1952 Kurosawa film Ikiru.
Mr. Williams, a little on the frosty side, perhaps. Not too much fun and laughter. Rather like church.
How did it happen? Small wonder I didn't notice what I was becoming.
Dad, you all right?
If only to be alive for one day. But I realize that I don't know how.
Do you think we should alert the police, perhaps?
What will the police care that he's a couple of hours late for work?
A couple of hours late for work. Who would ever have thought? This man who until yesterday was living a shell of an existence.
And I so very much do not wish to do so.
Okay, so what happens in this film is that you see the life of this. I hate to use
Guy?
the term.
Public Works Department.
No, but I was going to say elderly man. But he's lived a life. He has this career. He's the head of this department in public works, as you say. He's also this sort of restrained British gentleman, which I think we all, well, of at least people of a certain
Right.
age sort of know,
Right.
that he wears the bowler hat. He always shows up at the right time and he just conducts business. I don't want to say frugally using words, but he doesn't have to say much.
No.
It's his presence alone that sort of runs what everyone has to do. So, and this is Bill Nighy. He's playing Mr. Rodney Williams. So everybody's talking about Mr. Williams. Well, at the place, a new man by the name of Mr. Wakely gets hired. And so he's sort of being schooled by the other people he'll be worked with about how you treat people. And he goes into the office and he sees how it works. But then he does meet this woman, Miss Margaret Harris, who's played by Amy Lou Wood, who the reason I want to mention Bill Nighy, Amy Lou Wood, and Alex Sharp, I thought are excellent in this movie playing the parts. Now, Amy Lou Wood just has to sort of be delightful because what happens is, of course, in the course of this movie, Bill Nighy's character finds out that he will not have long to live. And he sort of takes it upon himself to find out what happened to me because I used to have a life, but now I don't. He can't even bring himself. He has such this repressed kind of emotional thing where he cannot even bring himself to tell his own son, which tells you immediately there's something odd with, and what I do mean this, there's something very odd with this sort of British stiff
Yep.
upper lip.
Yeah.
But as I like to point out, this is what Britain's renowned for, that no matter what happens, what is that phrase they use?
Keep a stiff upper lip.
No, keep
Stiff upper
calm.
lip.
Keep
Keep
calm.
Keep calm
and carry on.
Carry on. Yes. Which is exactly how I see the British of this ilk.
Well, what
you
is
know?
it? The Queen says, never complain. What is that? Never. It's something and never
Never
complain.
retreat, never surrender.
No.
But no, exactly. I mean, and that's what they do, because the royals are basically what and again,
ultimate.
this is taking place post World War II in England.
Right.
I'm assuming around the late 40s, early 50s. They don't quite tell you the
I
date.
agree.
But first of all, the way they made the film look is just harkens back to that period immediately. So you're caught in this, and you should know the mentality of
Never
how his
explain.
characters
No,
Never
never
complain?
complain, never explain.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
right.
But see, exactly. I mean, and that's what you see with these characters. But he then has to figure out he doesn't have much of a life. I think he's reflecting. I mean, he was married. His wife has obviously passed away. He has a son and daughter-in-law living with him. He just thinks, I don't have a life. What should I do? Well, he does admire this young lady who works in the office. And through her, I'm going to just say this, as the story goes along, through her, he just sort of wants to spend the day with her.
Mm-hmm.
That in turn gives him sort of an open, because of, as he claims in the movie at least, that she just seems to have a joy for life. And he actually mentions to her, I remember how that felt.
Right.
So he wants to find that again. The first thing he does, though, is he runs across this character, a writer by the name of Tom Burke. And actually Tom Burke actually is a nice little character in it, because he just has the one sequence, but you understand, I guess Dr. Kubler-Ross came up with that 5, stages of death. Yeah. And so, the first one is supposedly denial. Second one's anger.
Right.
Third one's bargaining.
And
Second
acceptance.
one's depression. And then last one's acceptance. Well, the thing is, at the beginning, he sort of accepts it.
Yeah,
he just knows this is going to happen, and he accepts it. I mean, he's literally bypassed all the stages, except you think, but he says, no, what did I do with my life?
Right.
And so he starts skipping work, but he runs into this Miss Harris, and they spend the day together. That just rejuvenates his life. All of a sudden, things begin to happen to him that he obviously hasn't had for years.
Right.
Playing a bureaucrat, I guess, or being a bureaucrat in any capacity, regardless of which country you come from, I'm sure must be sort of dull and, I don't want to say boring, but challenging, stifling. Stifling is the best word. Exactly. That's the best way to put it. So he does come out of that. And then that's what the rest of the movie is like, what is he going to do now with this little limited time? And I have to admit, I had seen Ikiru, and apparently Kurosawa based Ikiru on a Tolstoy story novella. So I thought, okay, I can see he's taking a Western perspective. Well, now the writer, Kazuo Ishiguro, who's Japanese but born in Britain, he was asked to adapt this, and he's the one who wrote Remains of the Day.
Great movie.
So this man knows, well, he wrote the novel, okay? He knows the British mentality, because you're right. I thought that showed exactly that same mentality you're seeing Bill Nighy go through, right?
Stifled. Totally stifled.
But you have he's a butler, so he has a service, so he knows what his position is. He knows exactly what he has to do, and he doesn't deviate from it ever. And so he seemed to be a perfect person to adapt the screenplay, because I claim the Japanese behavior is exactly the same. You do nothing that puts you in the limelight, yet you do nothing to shame the company.
Well, you and I have had this conversation. In fact, I wrote that in my note. You and I have had this conversation, how the British and the Japanese, this kind of formality is very ingrained in the
society, in their societies, right?
Yes.
That proper behavior is like the number one thing that you must do.
Hold on.
Yeah. Sorry, George.
Me too, George.
So, but I highly recommend this movie because Bill Nighy's character, you talk about somebody who seems, like I said, just a typical British kind of upper class kind of person. With the suit, the way he behaves, and yet slowly but surely you see that sort of change. And by the time he's with the girl, he's beginning to smile. You actually see him smile, which you never see throughout the movie. So there is something that changes. And then, of course, it has to do with also his position in public works, where it's going. One thing I will say, and this is a spoiler, it does sort of end the way Kiru ended, which really surprised me. I was really surprised how they captured that, because it's a really touching moment at the end.
Yeah.
I highly recommend this movie, but I will say it's not for everyone, because I know it is probably too slow paced, possibly a little too long for people, but I was just mesmerized by Bill Nighy. I just thought I was there with his character from beginning to end. And again, I will give it to the two young people in it who sort of egged him on being that, because he cites the two people as sort of, or actually I put it back. I think he cites her for sort of giving him a delight, and he gives guidance to a young man in the office who just got hired to sort of understand, don't be like me.
Right.
In my opinion, that's how I saw it, at least.
Me too.
Oh, yeah. I really enjoy this movie. I think to me, this is what I call a real movie. This is an Oscar movie. I gotta sit down and get my fine wine, because I'm gonna watch a movie. You know? So I can see why he was nominated for an Oscar. He's actually, there was a movie we saw a long time ago where it was about the making of the Dunkirk.
Yes.
The movie was the making of Dunkirk.
Yes.
And Bill Nighy, I think, is in it. He's one of the actors in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought I can't remember that kind of
Yes,
character.
I remember you.
He always has a very,
I know the movie you're talking about. Yeah.
So his persona is he's always very soft. I'm like, I can't believe this. I feel it in my fingers, guy. But he always has the same persona. But I think the camera loves him. He's got a lot of charisma. I like his Bill Nighy. I thought, I haven't seen the original. It was Ikiru. But I could see them all being Japanese in this movie. Just the way they were acting, the formalities of it. I mean, I could see this as a Japanese movie. To me, the movie is about having a life with purpose. Having my life with meaning. And sometimes he gets caught up in work. And feel like, does my life have meaning? And he's trying to find or create has my life had purpose? Right. So he's trying to create a purpose or create meaning for his life. And he finds what is going to be his life. Yeah, his purpose. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoy this movie.
He's one of my favorite actors, Bill Nighy. I just think the guy is like astonishing. I discovered him in Still Crazy. And,
yes. That's
and
a great movie.
It was like it's a comic masterpiece of a performance. And there's just something about him. I actually was lucky enough to see this at a screening where he was present and did a Q&A afterwards. Now, he had just flown in from England and was exhausted. And you could tell he was exhausted, and it was perfect that he was exhausted at this thing where he was dealing with this guy who was exhausted by life even before he finds out this is at an end. And somebody said something like, hey, what do you feel like when you watch your movies? And he said, I never watch my movies unless I have to, and I don't have to, so I never do.
I don't blame him.
And you can see why. I mean, it's like, on one hand, you can say, well, his performances are always pretty much a pretty narrow variation of a certain thing. But I just have this. He's not, Lana's shaking his head because he's spotting it. Bill Nighy brings something so different to everything. And I had this fantasy once of being part of an award show where he wins an award, and I just get up and say, I have an open letter to Bill Nighy from everybody who's ever worked with him. We want our scenes back. Because when he is on screen, you can't watch anybody else. And yet you can with everybody else. And I like to say this, I think the actor's name is Tom Burke, not the character.
No, the actor's name's Tom Burke.
That character and that scene, that whole segment of the movie are really wonderful, because that's the thing of opening the door to, it doesn't have to end just because I'm ending. There's more that I can do in my life, and leaves him, it just gives him the opening to say, well, let me see what it's like talking to that young woman, because she seems to be very nice. And it's never, I mean, I think at some point later on, he said, okay, it is kind of an infatuation, but it's not like he's chasing her skirt. He's just like seeing someone.
Living.
Huh?
He's living.
Exactly.
He's living. He's seeing something. He's seeing an alternative that he's forgotten existed until she came into that office, and then in meeting with this fellow, because he goes away. He doesn't show up for work for several days, and he goes away to like Brighton or something, like one of the beach communities. And that's where he meets this guy who's just sitting there regaling the proprietor of this empty diner about how he's a writer, et cetera, et cetera.
And broke and not having much of a life.
And this guy comes in and gives him money, and says, "Show me a good time tonight. Like I want to enjoy myself," and he does. And then later on, you see that carried through when where he and the young woman are in an arcade, and he wants her to use the thing to grab the rabbit toy and get it out of there. Not so he can give it to her. He wants her to learn how to do it, So he's just like sort of, and he's saying like, you got to come in from the top and grab it from the top. It's like he's giving pointless information, but he's sharing his life. And so we're witnessing a person sharing their life. And it's a beautiful exposition. It's a beautiful story. I thought, I might find this boring. I didn't, because it's too close to home, quite honestly, I mean, this has a lot to do with what I've been going through in my life recently, except I'm not dying. Don't worry, folks. My health is pretty good, but I am opening myself up to who I have denied within myself for most of my life. And it's an exquisite experience. Don't ever stop. There's, you are with us as long as you decide to be,
Right.
until something comes along and says, I've made a different decision.
Yeah.
But it's acceptance or it's denial or it's, okay, what do I do now? I've had, whatever happens to me, I've had a good life. I don't expect to be dying soon. I don't expect to be getting seriously ill soon. I don't even need to knock this stuff. This is the way I feel. And I always am only living in this present moment. So as long as I do that, I'm fine. And this is about someone learning about the present moment and that there's something more to life than his unhappiness, that he can bring happiness to other people, which he does in a very beautiful way.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I thought this was like, actually, as you're all talking, I almost feel like crying. It was like,
Me too, actually. Yes.
It was such a beautiful character. His character was so amazing. I was totally mesmerized by Bill Nighy. I mean, literally, I watched your movie and your movie the same night. Your movie was like just also very good, but in a different way. Your movie, I was like, it was kind of like getting sucked into a thing. In other words, like, it was like my room, I was telling Patty, like my room disappeared. All I saw was him and what was going on with him. And that became my reality. It was like, that's how intense the performance was. It was so slow. And it was amazing. He was a guy who works for the public works, who has just been handed a death sentence by his physician. And he says, and this is so English, quite. I was like, oh my God, that is so English. You know what I mean? That's how he takes it. Post World War II, which means these people have been through a lot because they've been through World War II. London was bombed. They've been through a lot. He is basically, we're going on an emotional journey with him. His emotional journey to something like happiness. This film is based on a Japanese, like he was saying, film, a remake of Akira Kurosawa's Akira. Lon and I basically had this discussion before about how similar Japanese culture and British culture was.
yeah, absolutely.
It's the concept of blubbering emotion is just so
foreign.
Yes.
Not only foreign, just like
Do not make a spectacle of yourself.
You do not do that. It's like the concept of really restraining your emotions is considered a good thing. It's like a good thing, a brave thing. Keeping a stiff upper lip, stoicism is a virtue. So different than us, I would say. Amy Lou Wood as Margaret Harris, brings a lot of lightness to the film, and that's his attraction. I never got there was any kind of
No.
I felt like she was more like a daughterly, and actually that was the problem in the movie, is everybody was perceiving it as something different. I never got any of that from that.
He was attracted to her plucky youth.
He was her youth,
her basically
life.
her joie de vivre.
But also it's a comment on the on the mindset of people when they look at
that was their concept.
Exactly.
He's dying, she's life. And it was like that was so great for him. And he was so appreciative of her. Right. And actually she was of him. And I thought it was really funny at the funeral when all these women, like the women from the park, and what they were all crying their eyes out. And I know that you, Patty, had a problem with the children, but I really didn't see it like that. That they were like society.
No, right. Well, they're the ones who were affected by his life in a very good way. And what made me laugh is how they're saying, oh, can you make those ladies go away? They're causing a spectacle, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Of true emotion of him passing away.
Because they're society. They're the way that people look at stuff. But when you're dying,
you don't care.
You don't care.
No.
Well, you shouldn't. I'm sure some people still do to their dying day, but for the most part, that's what I said. That's what this movie was about.
Most people don't know they're dying.
Oh, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? He knew he was dying.
Yeah.
It's like, so it was kind of like he had no time for it.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, so I just thought that was wonderful. I actually felt sorry for them. They were trying to understand him. They just couldn't.
Sorry for whom?
The children.
His son and the daughter-in-law.
They were horrible.
Well, yes, but it was funny. Was you talking about Roseanne Barr? And I was watching her on an interview, and she was saying, I have 5, what is it called? Thankless children.
I
thought that was so funny. It was like, yes, you can't worry about what your children think, but they're just trying to do the best from you in the reality.
So when you say children,
no, they're not.
Kids.
In this situation, they were not doing
Yes, they
I'm thinking
were.
Little kids. You're talking about his son.
Yes.
Okay, because they're adults. I'm thinking of little children.
Yeah.
No,
his children. Okay.
Yes.
His children were assholes.
There's something else that you mentioned that I hadn't thought about before, but in both the cases of London and in Japan, the war was brought to your home city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that did not happen here.
No, never happens here.
It's a different.
Americans have never experienced
being bombed.
True war.
Yeah.
Are you done?
Well, the Civil War.
Let me just see.
Bring it up, Sue.
Patty,
Bring
the
it
Civil
up,
War.
Sue.
Patty, the Civil War.
I say that
Yeah.
I felt I had watched a master craftsman in Bill Nighy's performance, something you really have privilege of seeing a real artist at work. And that's what I think.
Absolutely. So well said.
Thank you.
And because everybody has said.
Always with him.
Oh, you can always repeat. You can just.
No, I do not like to repeat. I don't like anybody to repeat.
Betty has her
Would you
rules.
say that
Love Bill
Just
Nye.
change the words.
He played the part brilliantly, slow,
She is British.
deliberate, cautious, and the whole movie moves that way.
Yeah.
So be prepared
Deliberate.
for it to be
Very
a
good. I like
slow,
that.
deliberate kind of movie. But he moves out of his comfort zone as much as he can. And that's what I liked. He didn't do anything dramatic. He did.
Well, he always stays himself.
True to himself, exactly.
And so he moved out of his comfort zone just a little bit to do something really sweet for other people. And that's why I love him. He's the best. The end.
Okay, so George, let's.
Oh yeah, no, I really just want to give it a 10. I can see what she
10.
was for an Oscar.
10.
Oh my goodness, I gave a 7.
Oh my God.
That's pretty high for him.
That's very high for him.
Okay, I think we are
That's
done
it.
here.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of What the Flicks podcast. If you enjoy the show, remember you can help our podcast by subscribing and liking us.
Please.
Okay, and now I have very exciting news. I don't know if it's exciting for you. You can support this podcast by also buying us a coffee such a thing. You can go buy us a coffee, right?
I love coffee.
Or you can join our Patreon. Of course, that's very unestablished yet, but we're working on that page. And we'll have it together soon. But thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you will send us a comment and send your suggestions.
Yeah.
Suggestions.
I enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. And that's all that counts.